The Oscars award ceremonies are notoriously controversial, from the people who attend to the nominations and wins themselves. For the 96 years the Oscars have been running, only 7 horror movies have been nominated for Best Picture. With hundreds of Best Picture-worthy horror films, the Oscars need to include more horror films in their nominations. So like I said previously, there's only been 7 nominations in the Best Picture category that happen to be horror movies. So over almost 100 years, there's only been 7. It seems kind of insane to think about all the amazing horror movies that have come out, especially in recent years. Out of those 7 nominations, there's only been 1 win, and that was in 1991 for Silence of the Lambs. The other nominations include The Exorcist, Jaws, The Sixth Sense, Black Swan, Get Out, and most recently from last year, The Substance. However, it's important to note the history of horror at the Oscars. While there's only been 7 nominations for the Best Picture category, there's been other wins in several other smaller categories, such as the first win for horror was in 1932 when Frederick March won Best Actor for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And then last year, The Substance won Best Hair and Makeup Styling, although it did have 5 nominations, including Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Original Screenplay, and Director, which is kind of interesting to think about how it only got recognized for 1 out of all the categories. So to understand the lack of nominations, it's important to know what the term snub means. So in the film industry, a snub typically means a wildly expected nomination or win that did not happen. So for example, this coming year, the movie Sinners is highly anticipated to be a big name at the Oscars. If it did not get a nomination for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, that would be considered a snub. So what's some of the most talked about snubs in recent history has been for the Best Actress category, specifically for Toni Collette in Hereditary, Lupita Nyong'o for Us, and Mia Goth in Pearl. Now, those films might sound familiar to you, and if you've seen them, that might be shocking that they didn't receive any nominations. Mia Goth has publicly spoken out about her concern for the Oscars and how they treat the horror industry. For example, several years ago, Natalie Portman won Best Actress for her role in Black Swan, which was a horror movie. The movie Pearl and Black Swan have many similarities, as they're both about obsessed artists. However, Mia Goth's movie Pearl didn't receive any nominations, even though it definitely did. And to move on to movie snubs, we have the most commonly talked about one, Psycho. Even if you haven't seen it, I guarantee you have definitely heard about it and have seen influence from modern horror films. Psycho was not nominated for Best Picture, which was extremely controversial, considering how influential it was at the time for film history, as well as how much it's influenced modern day horror movies. So to take a pause from horror really quick, let's talk about the issues the Academy has in itself. From the Silhouette Literary and Arts magazine, they say Best Picture winners are typically long dramas about weighty issues, biopics of celebrities, or narratives about movie making, with a dearth of genre movies, domestic narratives, and stories told by women and people of color. Now typically, horror movies don't fall into these categories. While modern horror movies have been adjusting to fit these categories, it's not typically seen as such. For most people, horror movies based on their terror, psychological, and gore or special effects part of it. For example, last year, The Substance was considered both a shock yet well-deserved of an Oscar nomination. But part of the things that made it such a name at the Oscars was because it was both written and directed by a woman and told the story about a woman who was going through kind of ageism and sexism in the film industry, or in entertainment industry. And from a few years ago, in 2018, Get Out was talked about, not for that it was a great movie, but why it was nominated. So to go back to what the Silhouette said, they like to nominate stories told by women and people of color. Get Out is a film by Jordan Peele, who is a man of color, and this movie talks about modern slavery and racism. While this movie was incredible and definitely deserved the awards and hypes it got, even though it did not win it at the Oscars, it is considered a film that might not have gotten a nomination if it wasn't about that specific story. So to conclude, the Oscars have been known to dismiss horror films from the Best Picture category. This year, the films Sinners, Bring Her Back, and Weapons are all well-deserved of a Best Picture nomination, and hopefully a win for Sinners. However, if the Academy recognizes them or not, it's hard to say. They definitely should, and this needs to change. Especially as last year, as the award ceremony came out with their nominations, it was widely considered if the Academy who votes on these was actually watching the films, as there were some very questionable films that were in the Best Picture category. So while there have been nominations and wins in other technical categories, the Best Picture category needs to include and highlight the beautiful works of horror films. Thank you.